All right, Orwellian, let's make that P&L dance, shall we? Percentages or points? What are we doing now? I prefer percentage because then it just keeps me 9 to 14% volatility over the day. Like that's an inverse of the square realistically. However much work I had to turn to cover 4% to 9% is kind of arbitrary between days because you might had to have worked it, or you got caught in some bifurcated line, candlestick diagram that says we got to beat those shorters. Well, no, not realistically, because there's some other people that say you'll be solvent, you'll be a long out before you get solvent, and that's still pretty nasty. That's still a year worth of living in the valley and not knowing where I want to clip into that to come back on it because, hey, I want to make some money too. Let's do that, but nowhere's near enough to bring down the entire mountain in itself. In this case, the S&P. Everybody's kicking off Medicare, state tax, or federal tax because the hydrogen ions pie chart, this L bracket. You can't get away from that central limit theory. So when you're gauging, grading a stock, which ones are the types of frequency domains that I like, and how am I planning for that? Because I don't want to be here. That's still quite a long period of time to be sitting on that right there because I was like, all right, she's almost to the down, following trending lines. She was double down. That's still, I put it here, I'm waiting until it gets here, it popped back up because, hey, that's a double hard fall operator, to come back in. Nobody really knows, they're not paying attention, and it's 2/3. You were out here, which is probably a good move, but it kept going, right? Well, you can't listen to this guy say that as much as you can't necessarily hold 40 long. Have a different mechanism where that's not going to hurt you. Bear entry is where that just slammed you right there. It's like, hey, yeah, I'm just learning, and go clang, unless for those accounts it gets back up to here, and I got to know from any standpoint, do not move. You lost that much money on you about percentages of some broker doing it for you. They got to take care of you. You did that yourself. That might cripple you to no end, especially once you're out, and you can't say any of the stocks in there specifically was your farm making the money off the yield for it, not necessarily mining comp, but back to Medicare and Social Security and Fed and income taxes. The 2-year there is a military 2 or 5 year training, more realistically. I'm enriching you in a 3-amine inside somewhere's in here, and then it's going to change some frequency domains. But that's to say that's what it'll do, especially with other signals that are neutrino, wow particles inside of what's defining what it does. And how do you plan for something like that? What's the catalyst? Intel today on the market, December 2nd, she's $24. That's sitting down at the bottom according to what it is. And you got Kelly over to CNBC talking about how, we're doing these, it'll be a 2-year paid program, not for 18-year-olds, but the 36-year-old that's been just keep rolling it into whatever 4-month that was on Intel today, or other mechanisms, because I would like to see a relief. From a customer's perspective, I want to get back down in here while these other people stay for that short period of time while they're running the 401k. And in there might be some Fourier frequency domain right down to the minutes on the candlestick where bump, 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 bang, bump, 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 bang, 9:30, bump, 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 bang, bang, comes off the bottom, drops over. It's been doing that in the frequency domain and deep field of the daily pressure gauges, our board count cut for coefficients, or what our team dynamic does. They're in the margin call office. This one makes roughly $46,000 a day, but it's only because this one on the spark lines of pallets and packs that make their way through the entire finished process and field charges, right? Then the chemically bonded has a positive charge, so it's or negative charged ion. It's in the ion state still. It drops back to XYZ, but when you're demanding that, again, I got my books, I got my boot barn, but what you're really asking for is some kind of financial domain, something that's spark lining that off but more precise, something that's going to bump up my computer base and make my configuration, not just necessarily data mining rack, but also the saw, this other thing, my configuration is what gives me a driver as an input. Yes, I could replicate that mechanism, but there it would be dumb money or bad money. Realistically, you're just moving money around. That is a job. But in that job, every trade route that this one runs silver coin, this one runs gold coin, and through Caesars and Xerxes, this is an equivalent exchange, lambda H over P. That much silver in those times may not be necessary for electricity, but it does serve a model in the conductivity nowadays of what we're doing with the Boyan and the gold Vanguard, or what those numbers are, how I have to position for the bullshit of the proxy. I might have to do a Scar Mufasa stuff over there, Elephant Graveyard. Things to consider.